Welcome to Upside, and this is a special episode. It's actually a whole new series. It's Upside News. We wanted to try and do a new format, and that's why we are in a new location.
Yeah, we're going to be running through the news on a weekly basis. These episodes are probably going to come out towards the end of the week, and we're going to help you sift through the masses of news that we see online and tell you what's important and tell you what you need to do off the back of it.
That's right, it's a curated list. So let's dive on in. What are the news headlines today?
So today is the 12th of August. It is Wednesday, the 12th of August, and our key headlines that we're going to be running through today are: the appeals court has overturned Amazon's ban on Perplexity's AI shopping agent, and now we can see what Amazon is really afraid of. And FBA inventory now formally serves TikTok via 9 approved MCF apps. But before we get into the two headlines, a few quick checks that sellers around the world need to be aware of. Amazon's 75 character title enforcement is now live. So we spoke about this a few times over the past few weeks. It has been enforced from the 3rd of August. AI title rewrites are on a 14-day approval queue. So if you've got your Seller Central account on Amazon, you can go and find these in Manage All Inventory, and then there's a button in there to review listing changes, and you can see what Amazon's brilliant AI has suggested for your title. Probably worth changing them because the titles look very empty, I would say.
It's definitely a big change, and I would highly recommend anyone who is selling go in and change your titles to what you want it to be, because the AI will likely get it wrong. And you can always put the USPs in there. There's a whole new feature in there that you can pop the USPs in, so pop those in too.
And then the second thing to check out for this week: sponsored products is now in creator content. So this has come into play from the 10th of August. Off Amazon placements are on by default in the campaigns. So there is a button in there as well. If you check, you can go into the campaign settings. It is called the increased reach button. And it's just worth being wary of, if you've got it on, what impact that could be having, because you could be getting impressions and clicks off platform. Shall we get into our first headline, Al?
This is a juicy one, and I'm actually keen to discuss it. So let's go.
So, the appeals court has overturned Amazon's ban on Perplexity's AI shopping agent, but what has actually happened? Perplexity made an AI assistant called Comet. Now, you can tell it to buy me some washing up liquid, for example, and it logs into your Amazon account and it buys it for you. Amazon actually sued to ban this using an anti-hacking law from 1986, and it won back in March. But on the 4th of August, the appeals court threw this ban out with a simple line: when you send your AI to shop for you, you are the one visiting Amazon, not the robot. So, lots to discuss on this one, Al, but what are your initial reactions to this news?
I love this headline in the sense that it talks about so many things happening at once. One of which I think we want to stand vindicated again, which is we've been saying for so long that Amazon is hyper protective of their ad revenue. And this is one of the big reasons we've been saying Rufus is fine, it's nice, it's a good flashy thing, but it's not going to replace how things are done, because Amazon makes so much money from their ads. And this is like hint to what's coming up in our conversation. This is like the big thing they're trying to protect, right? Because they make 20 billion, or just shy of 20 billion a quarter, 20 billion a quarter from ads revenue. And this is exactly what this AI was basically circumventing.
Yeah, exactly. It just navigates past all the advertising. It has no prejudice, it has no bias. It just goes through and buys the exact item that you set it to. So it's not necessarily that Amazon are scared of agentic commerce in general, because even though, like you said, they discontinued Rufus, their new AI shopping assistant, which is the new Rufus Alexa, grew fivefold, and they've been bragging about that. So they're not scared of the agents, they're just scared of owning the agents. And yeah, like you said, that is a lot of revenue that they're generating on a quarterly basis.
That's huge. I mean, it makes sense for them to be so protective of it and defensive. I mean, 80 billion a year in just passive income in many ways. Like there's not so much that needs to be done. The margin on that would be insane. So I think, yeah, absolutely, they're going to try and do their best to try and protect it. But I wonder if there's one of those things where you're fighting an uphill battle. the tides of commerce are changing in many ways, or technology is changing, and so they have to find another way of protecting themselves.
I agree. And look, Amazon have got those problems to deal with, but why should the people actually watching our podcast care about this? And ultimately, we would say to begin with, don't panic, because the adoption on these AI models is still very small. It's not like you're seeing a massive percentage of people sending their Perplexity bots to buy for them, but
or even your Alexa bot. I mean, how many of you buying stuff on Alexa and using voice? Hardly anyone. So it's very, very early in that journey.
Exactly. But Amazon obviously think it is a big problem to be worried about, because you don't sue if you're not worried. Which brings me on to, I think, the main topic of this news that people should be worried about, which is we've been back and forth on this so many times.
Yeah.
And on this is the AI optimization for your listings. Now, we've seen many experts in the past take people on pointless paths of optimizations for AI. Reference the Rufus experts that we referred to when Rufus was kind of discontinued. And there's been loads and loads of conversation on how it's not important anymore to optimize for humans, but it's important instead to optimize for AI, which means people are going into the back end of their listings and changing all these random settings, hoping that will cause the AI to pick them up. So as we've established, Amazon are worried about agentic commerce coming in. It's clearly a big issue that's going to build and build and build and build momentum. Where does that leave sellers at the moment with how much should they actually be optimizing for AI, and what does that actually look like today?
So my gut is we're really early in this journey. So I don't think you need to suddenly change everything and have very boring stuff that only talks to robots or AI, right? Because most of the consumer journey is still taking place as humans. And I think that part is going to stay strong for a long time. Where you're right, and I think it's right that things are changing though. They talked about their own AI increasing by fivefold, but fivefold from what base, right? So Amazon often talk in percentages and multipliers, but they don't always talk about in absolute numbers. And it's the absolute numbers that are important in this case. I think it's really early in the journey, but you need to be aware of it because things will eventually change and it will kind of differ. And I have no doubt that to protect their ad budget, Amazon is going to work out something, whether it's going to be some kind of license deal or they're going to make things go through some kind of gating process where you can advertise within there. That will change, but at some point you will need to kind of flip over, but it's early in the journey. That's me. What do you reckon?
I agree. I mean, we're probably going to have all these experts resurface again now on this news and more news coming up with these agents going in and shopping for people. You're going to get people saying, oh, you need to change your whole strategy and change it for AI. But I agree. Ultimately, these agents are still shopping in the same way that customers shop. Granted, they're not seeing ads, but they are looking at key search terms in Amazon and then finding the products that rank the best under those terms. Now, that is what the strategy should be anyway for human optimization.
There is a really important note here to be aware of, which is the behavior of what happens when you buy with voice. So currently what you might say is, please buy me the same coconut oil I bought last time. In which case, the AI is going to go in and check your history, repurchase the previous one. So that's one way it will happen. Another one, more likely, is it may kind of, well, what Amazon was doing previously is they were just surfacing their own stuff and just sending that into the voice baskets. However, again, there's going to be court cases around that, where that's going to be limited down as well. And the EU, if anywhere else, will definitely snap in on that. What I think, though, it really does highlight is there's still an element of two things taking place. One is where you need to compare and understand things. The AI through cookies is going to need to go through understand your preferences and purchase what you actually prefer. So it will eventually be able to kind of do an assessment on your behalf and purchase something that it thinks you will like. But until then, what you're going to really need to do as a company, as a seller, is make sure that your brand is strong, because ultimately you're going to either name a brand, you can say, please buy me that Dyson hairdryer, or you're going to say, get me like the number one seller, in which case the brand part is still really important here. What do you think on that, Leon? I think you're a big brand person as well.
I agree. I think the playbook isn't changing ultimately. And if anyone is being told that it should, Don't listen to them yet, I think is the key takeaway there. Yeah, we don't know where this will go. Like we said, this is still very small proportions. So for now, just keep doing what we're already saying to do. Optimize still for the humans, and you will find that AI picks it up in the same way.
And remember that brand, what sets you apart, that whole commodity selling and just selling stuff just to shift volume, that may kind of be under pressure in the future. And places where customers exist and where you can create a moat around your brand and your business, that's going to be super important. Quick pause for this little side quest. Team, if you are enjoying the news or you want to stay up to date with what's going on, subscribe, because every week we will keep you up to date with what's happening in the news for e-commerce sellers.
TikTok Shop US have published an approved list of apps, including Pipe 17, Rhythm, Weeby, and some others. Ultimately, these are now approved MCF apps. This is not actually new news. These apps have already been existing, but TikTok have now published in their US Seller Academy this list of apps, which brings a lot more attention to them and to the possibilities. So how it works, if your stock is already in FBA, you can have orders from TikTok Shop be shipped from the same pool via MCF. There is no Amazon side setup needed. The app just connects to TikTok and the app connects to Amazon, both through approvals, and you're good to go. So what are your initial reactions to this news, Al? So not a new product, but a formal document published by TikTok.
This is interesting because, so what makes Amazon strong is the sense of confidence that if I order something today, it's going to arrive the same day or next day, right? There's a certainty in delivery. And one thing that TikTok lacks is some of that certainty, right? Because you're like, is it going to come from China? Is it going to come from somewhere in Europe? Is it coming from here? And when is it going to arrive? That's the first part. And then there's other theme of stuff that's been happening within TikTok, which is trying to crack down and make sure that things are happening in a really reliable way, in terms of delivery in particular. So this kind of really feeds into that, because they're clearly observing that Amazon has a reliable system, and they are officially greenlighting these 9 apps, which will feed into Amazon. So that TikTok and Amazon aren't officially holding hands, right? They're not doing this together. This is like some kind of like indirect route where they can just kind of lean on each other, and one will benefit from traffic and one will benefit from certainty.
Yeah, just to add, like you said, TikTok are really trying to crack down on that this year. In February, they banned independent seller shipping and only permitted fulfilled by TikTok fulfillment or approved third parties. They also just recently in June launched an IPI score equivalent, so an Amazon IPI score. They've called it the TikTok Shop Performance Score, and effectively based on your delivery and shipment performance, it gets affiliate tools, campaigns, and settlement speed. So yeah, like I said, they're trying to, and we had this conversation actually, the podcast that went out on Tuesday this week, we had this conversation on this whole Amazon versus TikTok idea and what TikTok are trying to achieve in order to compete with Amazon. And this is part of that. So a lot of sellers, if you are currently selling on TikTok and you have stock in Amazon, an easy thing to think straight away is, well, this is great. This makes my life much easier. It's an approved service. You know, Amazon have that reliability, and it saves me a headache of having to do separate logistics and separate fulfillment for each platform. But is this good news, Al? And what should sellers who see this think about when they consider using this connection?
So one of the things that this makes it easier is that you can have one less inventory pool to manage. That's great. That makes everyone's life a little bit easier. The issue is we said it in the TikTok versus Amazon episode, TikTok has a heavy element of virality, right? So if you just get a viral spike, not only going to knock out all of your TikTok stock, but you're also going to knock out all of your Amazon stock and anywhere else you're fulfilling within that pool. So that can be a bit of a challenge to really monitor. And I think you have to spend a lot more time making sure you have a quick way of replenishing all that stock.
Yeah, I completely agree, because ultimately people might look at the economics and the efficiency savings by using this, but what happens when you go viral on TikTok tomorrow and suddenly all your Amazon stock just goes? So all that time
a deal booked in or something.
Exactly. You've been like you've been working on your ranking, your prime, your organic position for months, right? All the advertising spend that we know goes into that. And suddenly, because you've gone out of stock on Amazon, you've lost it again. So suddenly that efficiency, that economic improvement of using this is completely reversed because you've got to reinvest into the Amazon advertising to rebuild all those things we've just listed out. So, in my opinion, this is not anything that really sellers should be using if they want to optimize their stock for the different channels. What do you think about
that? I don't know. I mean, I think, look, you're going to have your TikTok stock anyway, right? So at some point you may hopefully go viral, right? It's a good problem to have in some ways. The issue is if it knocks out the inventory from everywhere else. So we know that for Amazon, you need to stay above 30 days in the UK and Europe, 45 days in the US of rate of sale of stock with an FBA and whatever's available. For TikTok, it's very different because of the virality element. But I think you're just going to put extra pressure on having more stock, more than like what you'd normally anticipate within Amazon fulfillment centers. Now, the bigger trend on that as well is I think one, there's already pressure and costs associated to sending stock into Amazon inventory pools. So the other big part of that is you're gonna have to make sure you rely on AWD a lot more because AWD will replenish your FBA stock. It doesn't really exist here in Europe, so that's gonna be tougher for sellers in Europe, though they haven't banned the fulfilled by merchant inventory and fulfillment in Europe yet, so that may come later, but at the moment that ban is only in the US. So I disagree, but only slightly, in the sense that you're completely right, because you especially because we look after brands that sell on Amazon, right? You deal with the pain of them running out of stock on Amazon and that huge challenge of getting brands to replenish their stock on time and consistently. So you feel that pain. I'm thinking it's slightly different from my coconut merchant hat, where I think about it in the sense that I still need to manage that TikTok inventory somehow, right? And if I can pull it all together in one place, all the better. I just have to be more on it, because we know in the UK it's at least 30 days. If it's the US, it's 45 days of stock and available for Amazon. You have to have that. That's your bare minimum. So I know that. So all I need to do is make sure that my 8 to 12 week minimum that I have is going to have to be larger now to factor in spikes. So there's going to be a lot more stock that I have to keep in, because ultimately, if you can't get your stock in within like 2 or 3 months, you're having problems anyway, bigger problems to deal with. So there is that simplicity. When I think of the macro trend on this though, there's two things on this. One of them is you're going to be more reliant on AWD, right? Because in the UK and Europe, you can still use, TikTok still allow you to fulfill from your own warehouse. That ban that we mentioned is only in the US. So AWD is going to be more important because AWD will replenish your FBA stock. But there's that growing and the macro trend of Amazon having not enough warehouses and the costs going up for that anyway. The other part of this you have to be aware of is Amazon and TikTok are frenemies, right? They're not best friends. They're doing this out of convenience. TikTok's only allowing it because they have to. Once they get the systems up in place, I'm pretty confident they will move away from Amazon and they will start to disallow any of that reliance on Amazon inventory.
And I think TikTok, the whole volatility of TikTok and its stock problems exist anyway. I mean, you're always going to run into problems if a video goes viral and it wipes out your stock. No matter where you're holding it, you're going to run into the same issue. So either way, whatever way you frame this, you're not going to bypass that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, because you, at least that way, you were kind of like isolating that shock to just TikTok. Now it can kind of poison a bigger pool. So absolutely, it's just maybe slightly less headache, and you just have to be more on it.
Well, that's all for our first Upside News this week.
If we have missed any news, drop it in the comments. We will pick it up in the following week. Also, if you have any thoughts or comments, drop them in. It'll mean a lot to us. Or hit subscribe. It'll make our day.